The Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S have officially been given a release date and price point by Microsoft, along when you can start pre-ordering the system, and the next generation of consoles is coming very soon. And speaking of consoles, it looks like Nintendo isn't sitting back with this situation, as a new report has come out this morning saying that Nintendo is telling developers to make sure that their games are 4K ready for the Nintendo Switch, meaning, well, the Switch Pro rumors are heating up once again. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So yesterday was a very interesting day for the world of video games. Of course, we got the new Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity game that was announced for the Nintendo Switch. But beyond that, we also got a leak about the Xbox Series S, and pretty much came to the point where Microsoft had to confirm the price point for the Xbox Series S because, well, people already knew about it. It was a very weird situation, like I said, and it was nice to see Microsoft actually acknowledge this situation and realize that, hey, the cat was out of the bag with the Xbox Series S. We got to look at the system, and Microsoft pretty much had to announce it completely and even do a little trailer for it. Now, I was kind of waiting to talk about the Xbox Series X price point because I wanted to know about the Xbox Series X price point as well. Now, there was rumors flying around about that, but Microsoft has now confirmed everything about the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S this morning with new information about when these systems are going to be coming out, the price point of these systems, and when you can pre-order these systems. Now, in this press release, Microsoft said that a Xbox Series X, which is the most powerful console ever made, and the Xbox Series S, which is a next generation performance and the smallest console ever built at an affordable price, will be launching on November 10th, with pre-orders starting on November 22nd. There was also a big announcement about Xbox Game Pass, which we'll talk about a bit more in a minute because obviously that's going to be a very important component of the Xbox Series S, but that was the fact that EA Play is coming to Xbox Game Pass at no additional cost. So you'll be able to utilize all of the features and the games that are available on EA Play via Xbox Game Pass right now if you already have Xbox Game Pass or plan on getting Xbox Game Pass at no additional cost. So that's a really big deal, I feel. This was something I had heard was being rumored, but I wasn't quite sure if it was actually going to come to fruition. But now it seems like Microsoft and EA are teaming up for the next generation of consoles by giving people the most value for their dollar with something like Xbox Game Pass. Let's be real, I am a big fan of Xbox Game Pass. It allows me to check out games that maybe I was interested in but didn't want to plop down the money on, or just check out games that I've never heard of or anything like that. So I think this is a big addition to Xbox Game Pass and a real win for Microsoft coming up in this console generation because, well, they don't really have their own first-party games to sort of rely on, so they're really going to have to heavily rely on third-party games for the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, at least for the first part of the system, the first year or two of the system. Now let's talk about price points, because obviously that is a very big deal, and the Xbox Series X has been confirmed to be releasing at $499.99, so essentially $500, which is a little bit less than I thought. With all of the technology inside of the Xbox Series X, I really thought this was going to be a $600 system, but it's nice to see that Microsoft has, of course, gotten this system under that price point at $500. Now, of course, the Xbox Series S, we learned about the price point of that yesterday, and that will be $299, so a really good value, although there is one major problem with the Xbox Series S, but I do think that this is a very good value for the system. Now, when it comes to what these systems are targeting, of course, the Xbox Series X is targeting 4K 60 frames per second gaming with up to 8K and higher frame rates, but the Xbox Series S isn't really a slouch either because it's actually going to be targeting 1440p and 60 frames per second, which is very impressive for a system that only cost $300 brand new on launch day. Now, what's really cool is Microsoft actually released another sort of deep dive look at the Xbox Series S this morning, where they showcased what the system is actually going to be capable of. And they actually showcased Gears of War 5, which of course originally released on the Xbox One, running on the Xbox Series S. And this game was actually running at 120 frames per second on the console, which, I mean, you gotta be real, that's pretty damn impressive if this game is running at 1440p, 120 frames per second on the Xbox Series S, which is a $300 console. I'm definitely very impressed with the amount of technology that they have managed to put into the Xbox Series S. Now, these systems, like I said, will be releasing on November November 10th. They will both be releasing at the same time, which is something that was kind of up in the air initially. I actually thought that the Xbox Series S was going to be a 2021 addition to the Xbox library of consoles. I didn't expect to see it this year, so it is interesting to see these consoles launching side by side. Now, pre-orders for these systems will be going up on September 22nd. So you've got a few days or so, you know, a couple weeks to sort of save up your money to decide which console you want to get, whether it's the Xbox Series X or the Xbox Series S. Now, like I said, I do think the Xbox Series S is very impressive. Of course, everything that we've seen so far from this system does look very good. The CPU is exactly the same as the Xbox Series X. It's just the GPU that is smaller on the system. So it'll be interesting to see how game developers sort of tailor suit their games to work on both the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. And really, some of the games are going to be working on the Xbox One as well. So it's going to be a very interesting thing, something that's a bit unprecedented when it comes to console gaming. Although it is more commonplace on the PC, we have sort of seen some things with the Xbox lineup of consoles that show maybe it's not quite as easy to scale these games as it is for the PC. But like I said, the main concern about the Xbox Series S that I have has to be the storage on the system, because the system is only going to have 512 gigabytes of internal storage. Now, obviously 512 is a large number, but when you look at current generation games, these games are not small. That's essentially a Call of Duty Warzone game on your Xbox Series S. So you're going to have to really manage your space on the Xbox Series S, which, being an all digital system, I could see being problematic. Now, of course, there's going to be external hard drives for this system, but it appears that these are going to be proprietary hard drives that are being licensed by Microsoft. And we had a leak about one of the pre-orders for the price of one of the 1 terabyte Seagates. And really, it wasn't cheap. It was $219.99. Now, that could just be simply a placeholder price for this, but I don't know. I'm kind of inclined to believe that since this is proprietary stuff designed for the Xbox series of systems in mind, that might actually be the price. And now you're talking about a large chunk of money to just expand the console space available on the Xbox Series S, which I think could be a bit of a detriment to the system. I do think the Xbox Series S is going to be very successful to a degree. It'll definitely be more successful than the Xbox One SAD edition was, which was Microsoft's real first attempt at doing an all-digital system, because it really wasn't a great value compared to what was available on the marketplace with the Xbox One S, because it was just a couple dollars cheaper, whereas this is a substantial amount of money. If you just want to pick up a system and play the third-party games coming out for these systems, games like NBA 2K21, which are being designed with next generation in mind, I think this is actually a really good deal. You're just going to run out of space very soon on this console, and I could see that being a bit problematic, like I said, because of this proprietary stuff. Now, of course, we're going to be getting more information about both the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X very soon from Microsoft, probably another deep dive look at the Xbox Series X, and now the ball is really in Sony's court when it comes to the PlayStation 5. There are heavy rumors that Sony will be talking about the price point and release date of the PlayStation 5 today on September 9th, so you might end up hearing another video from me again if that does end up happening. But I just wanted to catch you up to date on everything going on with the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X. Now, the real question is, are you guys even interested in these systems? Do you have any desire to pick up these systems? Do you want the most powerful system on the market? Do you want a system that looks like pretty much a speaker at a drive-thru with the Xbox Series S? Let me know in the comments down below. And finally, things are getting very interesting with Nintendo at the tail end of 2020, because let's be real, a lot of us thought that this year was going to be a wash. We really hadn't seen much from Nintendo since Paper Mario: The Origami King came out on the Nintendo Switch, and they hadn't really talked about anything for the rest of 2020, and people were getting a bit concerned. Now, obviously, a lot of this was due to real-world situations. Nintendo's slack work-from-home policy, that's pretty much just standard in Japan, so a lot of people were worried that the year was going to be a wash, but Nintendo has really sort of righted this ship in a very quick manner. They, of course, announced the Super Mario 3D All-Stars Collection, which has been getting a little bit of controversy. We talked about that in a video a couple days ago on the channel, but at the end of the day, you definitely have to appreciate that 3 Mario classics, well, at least 2 Mario classics, and one game that I'm going to try to learn to love with Super Mario Sunshine are coming to the Nintendo Switch. We, of course, also had Pikmin 3 Deluxe that was confirmed for October of this year, and now we have a November game with Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Now, we talked talked about Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity yesterday. I am very stoked for this game. I love the original Hyrule Warriors. I almost want to pick up the definitive edition for the Nintendo Switch just to kind of play through it again because it's so much fun. I played it on the Wii U. I owned it on the 3DS as well on my new 3DS. Just a fantastic game, and the definitive edition brought over some of the features from the 3DS version of the game that were just quality of life improvements and really made the game better. So I'm really interested to check out this game. I think Age of Calamity looks absolutely great, utilizing the Breath of the Wild graphics, but really sort of sprucing them up, putting a lot more characters on screen. Of course, the story is now canon to the Legend of Zelda franchise. It happens 100 years before Breath of the Wild happened. Nintendo is heavily working with Koei Tecmo with this game. So all around, I think Nintendo has done a good job of sort of salvaging 2020 and making it exciting for Nintendo Switch owners. But because of this, Bloomberg actually put out a new report this morning stating that Nintendo is now raising the Nintendo Switch production to 30 million units for this fiscal year, which of course is ending on March of 2021, to satisfy demand for the Nintendo Switch. Now, there has been a lot of Nintendo Switch shortages, as we have seen with both the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch Lite. So ramping up production, if you're able to ramp up production, is definitely a very smart move for Nintendo to do. But what's really interesting about this report has to be something that we have talked about on this channel, a new Nintendo Switch model coming in 2021. Now, of course, we talked about this probably a week or two ago on the channel with some of the initial details that we had heard. There was a couple different reports out there about a new Nintendo Switch model. Some people were thinking it was a Nintendo Switch Pro. Some people were thinking that it was a brand new Nintendo Switch console. I went a bit more in depth with that situation, but in this Bloomberg report, they're pretty much doubling down that a new Nintendo Switch model is coming, and it's coming pretty soon in 2021. It says the following: the introduction of a more affordable Nintendo Switch Lite variant in late 2019 helped broaden the machine's potential audience, and Nintendo is making preparations for an upgraded Switch model and beefed up games lineup for 2021, Bloomberg News is reporting. Several outside game developers, speaking anonymously as the issue is private, said that Nintendo has asked them to make their games 4K ready, suggesting a resolution upgrade is on the way. So is Nintendo actually looking at getting into 4K gaming? Really, that's a big deal for Nintendo because they didn't get into HD gaming, of course, until the Nintendo Wii U came out. The Nintendo Wii was not a HD console, even though the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 were. So Nintendo has definitely been a bit behind the 8 ball when it comes to graphics on their systems and resolutions on their systems. Now, one thing I think a lot of people are going to say is, well, if this is a 4K system, it more than likely has to be a pretty large upgrade, but there is something that sort of offsets that I feel, and that of course comes into play with NVIDIA. Of course, the Tegra 1 is what is inside of the Nintendo Switch right now, and NVIDIA has been doing a lot of stuff with the Tegra as far as DLSS, which is essentially a AI solution that upgrades resolution and textures for video games that we have talked about before on this channel. I'll probably throw a little clip up right now of what this artificial intelligence can do, but it allows upscaling of current games without having to do any sort of stuff from the developmental side. It's all artificial intelligence based, and it's honestly very, very impressive. Now, this was actually put into recent Tegra 1 related products from NVIDIA, so I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility for NVIDIA and Nintendo to be doing something like this for a Nintendo Switch Pro model. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch Pro model would have to be a little bit beefier than the Nintendo Switch that we currently have on the market, but if they're able to get 4K graphics, upscaled 4K graphics, with things like the DLSS service that is available in the NVIDIA Tegra X1 that we have seen so far, I think this would be a very impressive thing. Alongside of that, there are heavy rumors that Nintendo is planning a lot of games for 2021, as of course real world situations have sort of stunted 2020 for the company, and I think it's a very exciting time frame. You have the Xbox consoles coming out, you have the PlayStation 5 console coming out, and now it looks like you're going to have a new Nintendo Switch console that is potentially beefier and potentially capable of 4K graphics coming out in 2021 as well. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think of this. Do you think this is a smart decision for Nintendo to make a Nintendo Switch Pro model that's capable of up to 4K graphics? Because I think it would be very interesting. Alright, so that is going to do it for today's video. Obviously, a lot of stuff to talk about, and like I said, there are rumors that Sony is going to talk about the PlayStation 5 today on September 9th, so you might end up seeing my face again. Let me know what you think of everything in the comment section down below. Are you excited for the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series 3DS, which one, if any, will you be picking up? And a 4K Nintendo Switch. Is Bloomberg right on this? Is this actually coming? And would this be something that you're interested in? And as always, folks, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.